All right. All right, guys, how you doing? Finally found my Kindle. Um, I apologize for not posting last week. Welcome to my channel. I was busy. I had to travel. I'm supposed to be traveling in the next 12 hours to London, so I had to prepare a bunch of stuff. So yeah, this is our first book review. We're going to be talking about Sun and Steel by Yukio Mishima. And so, all right, let's get going. So let's talk about Sun and Steel. It's an interesting book because for some reason, out of all the books I read, I relate to this one the most. I want to say I related to it maybe like 85% of the time. Because I was like, holy shit, like, that's me. That's a little weird. Clearly, you know, we definitely lived very different life because he grew up during the Second World War and I think he died in the 70s. But Yukio Mishima managed to put into words a number of things I never understood. And that's really what I crave the most. When it comes to the mind, it's about understanding concepts that brings a lot of pleasure. Putting a word into something you always wanted to figure out. That's really, I don't know why, but it brings me a lot of like joy, right? And the concept I learned just recently is the concept of the egregore, but we'll talk about it later. I think there's a semblance of an egregore here in the book. So Sun and Steel is about almost like a collection of thoughts. It doesn't seem fully organized. It doesn't seem fully concise and organized, especially the second part. It's a short book. It's basically a 2-hour read on Audible. I do both. I'm reading on the Kindle and I buy it on Audible so I can follow it more precisely and focus better. But the book is essentially about how a guy who belonged in the race of darkness suddenly encounters what he calls the sun and the race of the sun, and then ends up embracing it like fully. And throughout the book, he keeps like, I want to say he keeps ascending. He goes from a teenager, and then you can tell the things that he does after he embraces Sun and Steel ends up changing him drastically to the point where he's doing amazing things, right? Really cool things. So what are people of the darkness? It's not necessarily an evil thing. It's basically people who are focused on the mind. People who don't look at the body, who kind of look at the body with disdain, I want to say that. I was definitely like that. These are the people who are book smart, sometimes academically smart, who don't like to go out, introverted, always in their rooms, either working on a computer or reading a book or writing something, poems, really into literature, surrounded by just darkness, which is what? Their thoughts, their introspection, their thoughts and cogitations, all sorts of things that allows them to just keep diving deeper into themselves, right? That's people of the darkness, and that's who Yukio Mishima was, right? Basically, he's the guy. He hears people partying, he hears the neighbors partying, he's like, oh my God, he's so annoying. Then he just puts on his headphones and works even harder. That's that guy. He hates going out. See, the thing with, I want to say that most people are people of the darkness right now. they don't value their body as much, right? Because the modern world doesn't require it when you think about it. Why do you need your body, really? People of the mind look at their bodies like tools. So they're like, okay, I don't need my body. I don't need to survive. It's just not that hard to survive anymore. That's number one. Number two, if I want to go to a place, I have a car, I have a train, I have a bus, I have an airplane. The requirements for my body to be strong is literally very, very, very low. There's no need for it anymore. The only reason you would basically go to the gym is to, look good. And, take care of your health. But that's about it. It has nothing to do with survival anymore. We have, in the modern world and modern economies, have dissociated the need to be physically strong and the need to be productive. If you're a farmer right now, even if you're a farmer in an industrialized economy, you're on a tractor. And you have so many people who, for some reason, are expert in a thing, but they don't seem to follow. They don't seem to follow what they're experts in. I think the best example for me right now, just recently, is Dr. Hotez, right? The representative from the COVID vaccine advocate, who doesn't take vitamins, doesn't work out, eats junk food almost all the time. It's a problem for a doctor to be so cognizant of human health and then at the same time not follow it. Right? It's weird to see an obese doctor, but people still go to obese doctors. I have yet to see a dentist with terrible teeth. I've never seen that. Because they understand that you're not going to get clients if your teeth are terrible. It's true. I have yet to see that. But these seem to be the only people who preach what they say. Well, who do what they preach also. Other than that, most people seem to have completely dissociated their bodies from their behavior. And that's people of the dark. Yukio Mishima is, while he's a teenager, I think he was 16, I think. He's looking through the window and it's late summer, early autumn. And it's a festival. It's a festival in Japan. And he looks at the guys who are carrying the huge mascots and stuff, right? And he realizes that not only they're all buff, they're super sweaty, but they seem to be in some sort of ecstasy, right? Like, yes, it's a festival. Everybody's dancing. Everybody is in some sort of euphoria, some sort of joy. They're happy. But within that clique of the guys carrying the thing, it's like, it's not a bubble of just genuinely happy, euphoric people in trance, just carrying super heavy things, super buff, looking up in the sky, just looking at really nothing, just enjoying the moment. And he looked at it and he was like, that's odd. It's a little odd. Interesting, but odd. And he started to call them people of the sun because they were tan relative to him, clearly. And then the next thing in that book is that he notices an egregore. I have a hard time depicting what an egregore is, but an egregore is kind of like an idea or a thought or an ideology that manifests itself through the mind, but then the mind makes it manifest, materialize it physically. So a simple example, which is the one he gives, right? You look at somebody, he says, if you look at, he says, he talks about this. The mind is an individual. And the people of the dark use their body like a tool. And so if the mind of a sloth person would be of a lazy person, of a person affected by sloth, I'd rather say that, a person affected by sloth, then what happens is, physically, you're going to see a fat person. You're going to see a guy with a bulging belly. That's what he says in the quote.
Body, while itself the product of an idea, would doubtless also serve as the best cloak with which to hide the idea. If the body could achieve perfect, non-individual harmony, then it would be possible to shut individuality up forever in close confinement. I had always felt that such signs of physical individuality as a bulging belly, sign of spiritual sloth, or a flat chest with protruding ribs, sign of an unduly nervous sensibility, were excessively ugly, and I could not contain my surprise when I discovered that there were people who loved such signs. To me, these could only seem acts of shameless indecency, as though the owner were exposing his spiritual pudenda on the outside of his body. They represented one type of narcissism that I could never forgive.
If the mind is weak, then you're going to find yourself physically materialized a body that's also weak. And he makes allegories like that all the time. And he's like, wait a second. It shouldn't be the case. It should be, what if I had a good mind and also a good body? What if the secret to genuinely living is to stop treating your body like a tool and actually value it the same way I'm valuing my mind? Because that's what's happening nowadays, right? We are keeping our bodies, just barely making it, just so that our mind can work. But it shouldn't be the case. Your mind is just as valuable as your body, and vice versa. Why would you genuinely treat your body that badly? Because look, if you let's say you find your dream job, you wouldn't change it for anything else, whatever it is. Would you therefore would you therefore not want to do it for the rest of your life? For another 100 years? If you could do it for another 100 years, then you would do it. But you can't do it because you have a terrible body. So why are you not taking care of your body? That's essentially what he's talking about. And that's his first understanding of the sun. The sun is this warm feeling that tends to drag you out of your darkness without getting rid of your darkness. That's the thing. It's not trying to make you stop doing all of your intellectual stuff. It's not. The sun drags you out, and the sun also allows you to appreciate the other side. And that's where steel comes in. Steel is basically the idea of working out. Steel is basically the idea of adding physical training to your body. And to get back to the point on the people of the dark using their body as a tool, he makes a very good point. He talks about physical training and compares it to an ancient language. The truth is, you don't really need an ancient language. You don't need to know how to speak Latin or any other dead language. It's not necessary for you to survive on this planet. It's not. It was necessary way back then, but not anymore. And it's kind of like the same thing. Knowing Latin right now, although it's useless practically, it's not entirely a bad thing not to know. It's not entirely, it kind of gives you a plus. I mean, I speak French, it's my first language, so I could technically read a bit of Latin by just paying attention. I also speak Spanish, so if I coincide the words, those two languages being Latin languages, I can understand Latin a little bit. It's kind of a plus. And it's the same thing for physical training. It's the same thing for being physically fit. And so what happens when you become physically fit is that now your body starts teaching your mind. You learn the concept of pain in the areas of pain. Pain is an infinite spectrum, but you do understand what's pain when you're doing this, what's pain when you're doing that, and for some reason you become more tolerant. Some would say, and that's what the effect of the sun does, it makes you even enjoy pain. It makes you enjoy the fact that you're sore. Oh, today I was sore, oh my God. And then you wake up the next morning, oh, I'm feeling good. And then, I don't know, but you can start a whole conversation with your friends like that. So, hey, you coming from the gym, you and your boys go to the gym, oh, I was so sore today, blah, blah, what are you using? Oh, I'm using this ointment. And there's this thing about cultivating your body. That's exactly what it is. Cultivating your body the same way you're cultivating the mind. And to some extent, once your body starts teaching your mind, guess what? You become more disciplined. Because now you tolerate more pain. You're less, let's say, reactionary. You're more understanding. Well, not more understanding. You're more understanding of pain. You're not afraid of it as much. And because you're less afraid in general, what happens now is that you are more of a risk taker. This Sun and Steel book is really good. So he applies this regimen. He basically starts working out for 15 years. I don't know exactly what his regimen was, but when he starts to work out, guess what? He starts running. And then he's explaining about what's the beauty of running. What's the beauty of training your body towards something? Breathing better or breathing harder. Either way, he's enjoying it. Either way, he lives better. He's more of a human being that way. Another important thing also is that although there is pleasure from mental activities, it can't really compare to the pleasures of the physical. Of course, there is sex. There is, I want to say laughter. I want to say all sorts of comedies. I want to say a movie, horror. There is all sorts of things from eating, being satisfied from eating, being satisfied from drinking. But one of the best pleasures, really, it's the pleasure that comes from a good workout. Knowing that you've done it for the day is a really necessary thing for your life. And the pleasure that comes from this makes you feel really alive. It makes you conscious. It makes you human. Of course, the mind side also helps out, but it can't compare. It really can't. It makes you feel like you're living in the moment right now. You're just right there, just like enjoying whatever it is you're doing. Or like the pleasure of going to bed after a long day. It's like, damn. You're stretching a little bit, boom, and then you just pass out in 10 minutes. And it's just good. It's good. It makes you feel like you've done something. More so than reading a book or understanding something for the first time. Right? He basically starts praising Sun and Steel, his ideology, the act of embracing things, and then the act of training the body, the same way he's been training his mind. And bear in mind, I mean, if he's published this book, that means the Sun and Steel hasn't taken away from the darkness part. He becomes a whole now. And that's where I want to get to. After the running, he starts doing military training. And after that, he ends up becoming a pilot for, I think it's called a Zero, it's called. A0, I forgot. And he's explaining about how difficult it is to breathe. He's explaining about how what's happening when you're in a G speed. And you can tell he has progressed an enormous amount. And that's the thing I like to see people do, right? It's the, 2 years ago, this is what I was doing. 5 years ago, this is what I was doing. And I wasn't happy, I was doing this, I was doing that. And this is where I am now. And that's because I have taken my body far more seriously than I did. And now that I've taken both my mind and my body seriously, now I feel more human. I feel much better. And I want the listeners to really consider reading this book, essentially. Basically, all of my book reviews are going to be recommendations. Most of them, I hope so. The main conclusion, I think the main takeaway from this book is that your body is just as useful as your mind. And the notion of shunning your body because it's useless nowadays is a complete lie. Being a man means remaining in control of your body and your mind. That's like one of the tenets of being a man. You have to. You need to be able to restrain your mind from vices, but you also need to be able to cooperate with it. When it comes to being competitive, when it comes to being a critical thinker, when it comes to being able to project yourself into the future, all sorts of things. And you need to be able to do the same exact things with your body. So your body and you, essentially, it's not your body. In the same way, your mind is not your mind. It's you. You need to be able to say, I don't want to drink tonight. Well, I don't need to hang out with this girl tonight. I don't feel like it. Just cause. Because some people have literally zero control over their bodies. If you present them with something, it's done. Present them with drugs, money, fame, whatever, done. Right? Because they didn't get this thing. So again, the conclusion for this book is respect both within yourself. Train both. Cultivate both. And love both. And once you start loving both, you start getting positive feedback on your mind. If you read a new book, then the positive feedback is gonna hit your body. And then if you hit a new rep or you try a new sport, another feedback on your mind. And so, again, just to relate again to Yukio Mishima, I started doing Muay Thai for 2 years, and I was like, I was just wanting to just be in pain, just understand what pain is. And then after that, I was like, you know what, let me just actually hit the gym. And after that, I was like, I need to do something else. And it's the same level of the embrace, can you say embracement? The embrace of the sun that just keeps coming. And it keeps improving me. It keeps making me a better human being and a better man. So yeah, when this week I'll try to do a video about my friend and how we were complete opposite, but we still managed to get along. And how we kind of ended up at the same spot somewhat. Anyways, thanks guys. Take care of yourselves. And yeah, you don't have any enemies. God bless you. I think when I get to London, I'm going to make a quick video about a quick story to complement this book review, because I think it's a very sun and steel situation, and how body and mind regardless of which one you want to start with, has a tendency to, if you choose properly and if you pay attention and you're careful, has a tendency to merge to the same point.